Swiss police arrest 14 senior FIFA officials in a corruption sting as prosecutors launch a criminal case into the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will meet Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif this Saturday in Geneva, 1 month ahead of a June 30th nuclear deadline. And British Queen Elizabeth announces an EU referendum by the end of 2017 regarding the United Kingdom's membership. Good evening. You're watching I-24 News. I'm Michal. Several corruption scandals have hit FIFA this morning, with senior officials arrested in Zurich and a Swiss probe launched into the World Cup bids for 2018 and 2022. In an early morning raid in Zurich, Swiss authorities arrested 6 officials on corruption charges dealing with football tournaments in the Americas during the 90s. Later in the day, criminal proceedings were opened related to the choice of Russia and Qatar as World Cup hosts. This comes just a day before the opening of the FIFA Congress, where the organization is set to hold presidential elections. A short while ago, UEFA called to postpone the elections and is considering boycotting the Congress. Earlier, U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch called on action against the FIFA officials who she described as those who corrupted world football.
They were expected to uphold the rules that keep soccer honest and to protect the integrity of the game. Instead, they corrupted the business of worldwide soccer to serve their interests and to enrich themselves. The 47-count indictment against these individuals includes charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering conspiracies spanning 2 decades. 2 generations of soccer officials, including the then presidents of 2 regional soccer confederations under FIFA, used their positions of trust within their respective organizations to solicit bribes from sports marketers in exchange for the commercial rights to their soccer tournaments. They did this over and over, year after year, tournament after tournament.
I-24 News reporter Shai Ben-Ari has more on the corruption scandal.
Yet another corruption scandal erupted Wednesday within FIFA, World Football's governing body, an organization that has attracted controversy like few others in the realm of sports. 9 high-ranking FIFA officials have been indicted on corruption charges, along with 5 senior sports media executives, after U.S. and Swiss authorities launched separate inquiries into the activities of the organization's top officials. No less than 7 of the FIFA executives were arrested at FIFA headquarters in Zurich, Switzerland, where they were preparing for FIFA's annual Congress to be held Friday. The charges involve suspicions of bribes adding up to more than $150 million. The 7 are now awaiting extradition to the United States. Those arrested include FIFA Vice President Jeffrey Webb, as well as former Vice President Jack Warner, who also served as head of CONCACAF, the governing body for football in North and Central America. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch said the indictment alleges corruption that is, quote, rampant, systematic, and deep-rooted, spanning at least 2 generations of football officials who had allegedly abused their positions of trust to acquire millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks. One man who has yet again emerged unscathed is the current and long-serving FIFA president, Sepp Blatter, who was questioned but not arrested.
The president is not involved. Of course, he is the head of FIFA, but he's not involved in any. So how can you say, okay, he has to whatsoever step down? Here's the president. Here's the president. Here's the president. And in 2 days there are elections.
In addition, a Swiss investigation has been launched into mismanagement and money laundering related to the awarding of rights to host the 2018 World Cup in Russia and the 2022 tournament in Qatar. Meanwhile, FIFA's annual Congress is at this moment scheduled to go ahead as planned Friday, including the election of its next president. Blatter was seen as the firm favorite to win a 5th consecutive term. Many are wondering if that will change following this latest corruption affair.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair is to step down from his position as the quartet's Middle East envoy representing the US, UN, EU, and Russia. According to a source close to Mr. Blair, he will leave the role already next month. Blair, who became the Middle East envoy in 2007, notified UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon of his decision. He will, however, remain active on issues in the region as he remains fully committed to assisting the international community in advancing a 2-state solution for Israel and the Palestinians. Today, France warned it was ready to block a final deal between Iran and 6 world powers unless Tehran provided inspectors access to all installations, including military sites. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei ruled out international inspection of Iran's military sites or access to nuclear scientists under any nuclear agreement. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said that France will not accept a deal unless inspectors are given full access. Talks resumed in Vienna on Wednesday to bridge gaps before a June 30th deadline. U.S. State Department announced earlier tonight that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will meet his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif this Saturday in Geneva, just 1 month ahead of the June 30th nuclear deadline. Earlier, we were joined via phone by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev to discuss what is expected to take place in this meeting.
There are reports of a slowdown and that talks have been proceeding at a rather slow pace on the expert level, and both sides have been voicing predictions that negotiations could go down to the June 30th deadline or beyond. Until now, the negotiators didn't have to commit to any verbal agreements in writing, but now the negotiators are filling in the technical language of the agreement, and European diplomats have been claiming that the Iranian team is balking at important decisions, saying it wants to leave them for the top officials who are to arrive just before the deadline. The dispute over the inspection shows that there's a big distance that remains between the sides, but it's not clear if it will jeopardize an overall deal. That depends on the political will and how much at the end of the day, at the final stretch, the diplomats will be prepared to compromise at the last minute.
Meanwhile, Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Mualem said Wednesday that Iran and Russia would not give up their support for the Syrian regime, which has faced 4 continuous years of conflict. Mualem said Damascus looked forward to a better and bigger Iranian role in the international arena as the Islamic Republic shares a common intention and is seeking stability for Syria.
The relation between Syria, the Russian Federation and the Islamic Republic of Iran is deeper than some people think. They have never been late to provide support for our tenacity. We support reaching an agreement on the nuclear issue that meets in the interests of the Iranian people, and we look forward to a more important and effective Iranian role on the international scene after the end of the current negotiations.
And in Britain, Queen Elizabeth said today the government will pass an early law to hold a referendum over whether or not to fully join the EU. Her speech confirmed plans to legislate for the referendum, as well as to block rises in income tax, VAT, and national insurance. I-24 News has more.
In a glittering royal procession, Queen Elizabeth II headed to Parliament and delivered the traditional Queen's speech, opening the new session of the legislature. The key point of her address was the new government's plan to hold a referendum on EU membership before the end of 2017. Prime Minister David Cameron had faced pressure to explain when the referendum would be held and what changes to the EU he wants before then.
My government will renegotiate the United Kingdom's relationship with the European Union and pursue reform of the European Union for the benefit of all member states. Alongside this, early legislation will be introduced to provide for an in-out referendum on membership of the European Union before the end of 2017.
Cameron, who says he would prefer to stay inside a reformed EU, but isn't ruling anything out if it fails to change, was re-elected on May 7th on a pledge to reshape ties with the bloc before allowing Britons to vote on whether to stay or leave. In addition to the referendum, the government is also proposing a 26-bill package, which Cameron describes as a program for working people that would create full employment and quote-unquote bring our country together. Among other measures promised was a reform of human rights laws designed to weaken the influence of the European Court of Human Rights, a crackdown on illegal immigration, more power for Scotland, and a bill preventing any rise in key taxes before 2020.
And we end with the dance, as winners of the Benoit de la Danse Award, known as the Oscar of Ballet, were announced in Moscow on Tuesday. Chosen by an international jury of ballet professionals, prizes were given for choreography, dance, and composition. The Benoit de la Danse Award was established in Moscow by the International Dance Association and was first awarded on the Bolshoi stage in April 1992. And that's all the time we have. For anything else, you can find us online, i24news.tv. You're welcome to follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. I'm Michal Divon. Be sure to join us back here in just 20 minutes for all the latest news updates.